So surprisingly, at 38 and a half weeks pregnant, I've been doing a lot of sitting on the couch and knitting. So I've got two finished objects for you today and one WIP, which is honestly like 90% of the way done. Welcome back to my knitting channel. My name is Nadine and you can find me at yourknittingbestie on Instagram, Ravelry and here on YouTube. On this channel I talk about my knitting from the perspective of someone who lives in warm weather, which I feel you can kind of tell because I've just straightened my hair and I swear it's already going frizzy on me because it's so humid here at the moment. I remember Rebecca from the Craya there when she came to visit Brisbane for a wedding not long ago. She posted on her stories about how her hair had just gone completely crazy because of the humidity. As I mentioned, I have been at home on maternity leave for a little while now, and I've officially run out of energy for anything that really isn't a short trip out of the house or sitting on the couch. So I've got a fair bit of knitting done, which I'm super happy about. And I wanted to share those projects with you today. So the first project I have for you today is, I think, my longest term WIP. It has taken me over a year, maybe even 13 months to get this project done. And if you've watched my channel for a little while, you would have heard me mention it a couple times before. It is the Stephen West or WestKnits mystery knit along from last year. So I'll quickly, I'll pop up some footage of the shawl. Gosh, it's a big project. This is definitely the biggest shawl I have ever knit. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about the project and then I'll delve into my thoughts. So the Stephen West mystery knit along from last year called for 400 gram skeins of different coloured yarn in a bit of a gradient. So I think it was the Geogradient shawl, wasn't it? And I used yarn which my husband Michael, got for me for my birthday last year. And it is beautiful, beautiful yarn. So it was from Skein Sisters in Sydney, and they had a bunch of kits, so it was a little bit easy for him to pick out something that would work for the project. Which is a great idea by Skein Sisters and a bunch of other stores as well. And he ended up getting me the Romance line, 4 colours from the Romance line, which I believe is the Skein Sisters' own line of yarn. And it really is beautiful. So these are the colours I got. So starting at the white and then 2 pinks that were actually really similar. So I was a little worried at the start that there wouldn't be enough of a difference between those 2 shades for the Geogradient to properly work. But I think if you look at the project, I think it's okay. Let me show you a bit of a close-up at one bit. Yeah, so you can definitely see that the colour 1 and colour 4, being these 2 colours, have a lot of difference. And then the 2 pinks are pretty close together, but I think it still works. I think it's still really pretty. So the yarn I absolutely adore. I'll put up on screen the composition of the yarn, but I believe it has a little bit of silk in it. And colour 1, that white, is the first time that I'd used a speckled yarn. And it is really, really gorgeous. I got really into speckled yarn for a little bit after getting this yarn. It's so pretty, and it's just got these pinks and greens and yellows. It's just a little bit floral. It's like having bits and pieces of a garden in your white yarn. So I really love this one. So the yarn is absolutely a 10 out of 10 in my opinion. Really loved it. And probably one of the more expensive yarns that I worked with last year and this year because it was a special occasion. So then the pattern, I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, are aware of the mystery knit along by Stephen West. But basically the concept is that he uses his creative genius, and of course he has these beautiful, wacky, creative ideas, particularly for shawls. And they're known for being kind of technically interesting or technically advanced. So I think people, even a lot of experienced knitters, find them really interesting to do and a bit challenging, I think. So basically what happens is in October, I believe, of each year, he releases 1 clue a week for 4 weeks, and each clue is a mystery and kind of builds on the previous clue to form this really intricate scarf. And the idea is that you don't know what the ultimate scarf will look like. And probably the most fun aspect of the knit along is that so many people internationally join in the knit along. So you kind of get this sense of community knitting, and everyone's super excited to get each new clue and see how the shawl will kind of unfold. So I personally really enjoyed that aspect of it. So those two things, the yarn, the community aspect, and probably the fact that there were some new techniques in there for me. So I had never knit in a square, which is how, of course, the first clue, the revised first clue, that's how that is put together. So I had never done that before, and I found that pretty difficult actually at the start. I think I restarted it a couple times, but I saw online that a lot of other people had trouble with that as well, so I didn't get too disheartened. And then the next couple clues were pretty straightforward, I think. So that's kind of this eyelet section, and then moving into this section here. I actually put in some eyelets, I think maybe in clue 2, maybe clue 1. I'm not sure. Anyway, I put in some extra eyelets towards the start, and then when the next clue was revealed, it turned out that there was a whole section more of eyelets. So I've got a lot of eyelets in my shawl, and I probably wouldn't have put them in if I knew that eyelets were coming up in the next section, but I ended up doing where is it? Yeah, I ended up doing a solid section here between my eyelet section and Stephen West's eyelet section, just to have a little bit of breakup between the eyelets. And then certainly that last section, or maybe it was clue 3 since I didn't do the last clue, that last section which with kind of the elongated slip stitches, I had never done anything like that before as well. And if I'd been able to bring myself to do the last clue with the dip stitches, I am sure that would have been something new to me as well. But by that point, I just had to finish the shawl. I couldn't bring myself to do any more. So I think those are the 3 things that I really, really enjoyed about this project. The community aspect, the yarn, and the new techniques. Absolutely. There are unfortunately some things I don't love. And the things that I don't love, I think, outweigh the things that I do like, which means that this project is just a bit of a bummer to me because I don't really love it. Maybe that's putting it a little bit too lightly. I think I just don't like it. And I think it's for a couple reasons. So let me see if I can pull my thoughts together. I think the first thing is that it took me so long. I started in October last year and then got derailed with my sister's wedding and a whole bunch of other things, and then cast on a whole bunch of new projects and got distracted by them. So it kind of languished and was just an itch in the back of my mind for many, 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 many months. And for whatever reason, I think maybe just because I had left it for so long, it became a bit of a chore in my head. Like finishing this shawl in the last couple of weeks felt like putting in your taxes or doing your taxes after knowing that you're coming up to the due date and you've left it too late. It was just that sort of chore that you've been putting off for so long, and then you finally pick it up and you're like, oh. I don't think it was as bad as I had built up in my head, because I still, obviously, I like knitting, so it can only be so bad. But it wasn't my favourite project to pick up just because it felt, yeah, like a bit of a chore. I think also the shape and the fact that it's a shawl are part of why I don't like it. So I think the shape being this long triangle means that when you put it on, it just doesn't kind of really sit right for me. So it's almost like you just need to have it draped over your shoulders like this, and that's kind of the only way you can wear it. Which for me isn't how I usually like to wear my shawls. I like to kind of have them wrapped around me like this. ugh. But as you can see, even though it's really long, it doesn't really sit like that. The other way, I guess, is you could do a bit of a knot like that, and wear it that way. Or I think the only other way that I've thought to wear it is kind of like a bandana style. So where you've got the long bit at the front, and then you kind of do that sort of thing. Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite way to wear it. And I think that would look really cute under a jacket or a winter coat, because then you kind of just get this really bright pop of colour here. And I think that would really look beautiful. The difficulty for me being here in Brisbane is the opportunity to wear a scarf that has this much fabric on your neck is not, that doesn't come up very often. So I would get much more use out of a shawl that covered my arms, because then I could wear it into the shops, or I could wear it at the cinema or anything like that. Whereas I don't really have the opportunity just to wear a neckerchief type scarf like this. So I think that's part of why I'm not really vibing it, because I can't really see a place for this in my wardrobe. The other thing is something that I probably should have known from the start, which is that I don't love knitting shawls. I think I got drawn into the magic of the mystery knit along, and just kind of wanted to be included and part of the cool kids that were knitting the mystery knit along. And I kind of set aside the fact that, yeah, shawls don't really do it for me. I'm very much a kind of garment, as in a wearable sweater or cardigan or top sort of gal. So knitting these kind of flat pieces is just not really my vibe, not my personal preference. Nothing against it, but not for me personally. Do love the colour scheme though. Michael really did a good job on the colour scheme. Anyway, so I think that pretty much sums up my thoughts on this shawl. Usually with a project that doesn't turn out as well as I'd hoped, obviously there's a bit of disappointment, particularly for something like this, because the yarn is just so gorgeous that I would have loved to use it in a garment that I would get a lot of wear out of. And even in particular, after I blocked it, it became even more beautiful. I think you can kind of see the drape, and kind of the flexibility in the garment. It is just so luxurious to touch. But I can't really even like unwind or tink back this project or unravel it, because it's in such short sections because of all of the color changes. So I would end up with just thousands of bits and pieces of little bits of yarn that I don't think I could really use. So that's a bit of a shame. I also, as a matter of process, while it comes to me actually, I love how the color changes look. They're stunning. I hated doing the ends. It was absolute agony. Insofar as doing something you enjoy can be agony. But I really did not enjoy the ends, and I did a bad job of them, frankly, particularly towards the end. You can kind of see them along here at the top of the garment here. Not my best or neatest work. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, so I can't really unravel it to reuse the yarn, which is a bummer. But I do have a fair bit left over, since I didn't do the dip stitch. So I'm happy about that. So the other thing I would usually do is perhaps gift the project to someone who I think might enjoy it. And there's certainly some people I could think of. I think my mum would like it. In particular, perhaps I could send it to my grandma, because she's in cold weather, so if she were to scrunch this up around her neck, it would actually be useful instead of a risk of heat stroke. So I could do that, and I think that'll probably be where it goes. The only other thing I can think of for this project is perhaps I could use it for baby girl, and I could have it as a bit of a pram or a stroller blanket. if she needs it, because she's a December baby and it's gonna be hot. Or I could use it as a breastfeeding cover. That was the only other thing I thought of. Because of the shape, perhaps I could tie it at the back and have it like that. Maybe that would work. I'm not sure, I'm reaching here. But in any event, I am super glad to have this off of my to-do list. I do think the project is beautiful, and I have seen a lot of really stunning colour combinations, but it's just not for me, I think. And that's okay. Oh, even the way the yarn kind of shines in the light. It really is stunning yarn. So I'd love to hear your thoughts if you ended up doing the make along from last year or this year. This year's looked really, really good actually. I kind of wished that I had done this year's MKAL instead of last year's, because I just like the look as well of this year's make along. This one, the one from last year, kind of reminds me of a crochet look project. And nothing against crocheters, but for me, I switched back to knitting after being obsessed with crochet for a little while because I really prefer the look of knitting over crochet. So the fact that, you know, along here with the eyelets and the slip stitches, it just kind of reminds me of crochet, which is another thing that I just don't really vibe with. So I know some people tend to wait to see what the first clue or couple of clues look like, or even the whole shawl, before they cast on. And I think that's maybe not a bad way to go about it. Because, yeah, then you don't get this kind of disappointment over it not ending up being a shawl that's your style. But anyway, that all sounds a bit dire and negative, but to be clear, it is still knitting, so I did still enjoy it. It's just that the finished object didn't turn out exactly the way I would have loved it to. So thankfully now I have two projects that I absolutely adore to tell you about. So hopefully that will balance out any negativity from the comments on the MKAL. So I'll start with the one that's finished, and it's just a little one. This is the little hat for my baby girl that I have finished. And this is using a Bellissimo 4-ply yarn, which was part of the blanket pack that my partner, Michael, my husband, bought me for my birthday this year. So I ended up taking this colour out of the blanket, which I'll show you in a second, because I thought it was a bit too bright and clashed with the rest of the colours. But I really like it as a little pop of colour and possibly the first garment that she'll wear. So I hope it fits her. I did the newborn size. This is the same pattern that I knit for my friend's baby shower not long ago. And it's a really quick, simple knit, which is really lovely. There's actually a spot at the hospital that I'm going to, up in the ward, so where you hang out after you've given birth. And there's a little ball full of hand knit hats, and it has a sign saying, "Take one if you'd like." And I was thinking it could be really cool if I bring along an extra, so I can pop one in the ball, even though I won't need to take one because that's sorted. I thought that might be nice if I could pop one in, but also we'll see if I can get that done. As usual, I have far more projects in mind than I possibly have the time to do, but I would love to do that. But yeah, so this is going in the hospital bag, and Michael has instructions to make sure they pop it on her when she comes out, or he can pop it on her. And then finally, I've got the blanket project that I've been working on also for baby girl, that you saw a very small peek of in my last knitting podcast episode. So here it is. Oh, I think that looks really cute. I'm super into these colours. Eee! Okay, so there's a bunch of ends at the back, so don't look at them. I'll get rid of them before I show you the finished object. Oh, I was on the fence about this purple. This isn't black, it's actually just a really deep purple. Got it, I've got the ball here actually. Can kind of see that. So it is just a really dark purple. So I almost wonder if I should have excluded that one as well. because it really stands out. And that'll be the colour I finish on actually. I've just got the rest of this purple stripe, and this purple I think is maybe my favourite of the bunch. It just kind of makes my brain explode with happy chemicals when I pick it up. But so I'm going to finish this purple one and then do this dark purple as the last stripe. And after reading your comments on my last video, I think I will go ahead and repeat the error from the first stripe where I did the central decrease incorrectly. So it looks a little bit different, as maybe you can tell here. So I'm going to repeat that error on the top and call it a design element and explain to my daughter that mistakes are inevitable and fine, if she ever notices. So a comment on the yarn. This is beautiful, beautiful yarn, and it is just so lovely to work with. It slips through your hands like butter. It doesn't really split. It is machine washable. It is so soft. I love it. If I had infinite resources, I would knit with this all the time. I think it's 100% extra fine merino. I think that's right, yeah. And I've used it for a couple other projects, in particular a sweater for Michael that I made a couple years ago, I think. Yes. And I drafted the pattern for that one, so it turned out a little bit wonky, but it was lots of fun. So the yarn is, yeah, just lovely. And I would use it all the time if it weren't just a little bit too expensive, I think. I'll pop actually, let me quickly check the price. Yeah, so it is $17.95 for 50 grams. And so if you then convert it into a bit of a 100 gram skein, it's around $36 per 100 grams, which is getting reasonably close to a hand-dyed sort of yarn, which for us here is anywhere between maybe $35 and $40 to $50, depending on how luxurious the skein is. So for me, it's a little bit of a special occasion yarn, but it's so nice. It's a really nice special occasion yarn. And the thing I was a little worried about with this blanket is, so I think I mentioned last time, the modifications I have are to have the garter stripe at the bottom and at the top and along the sides. So each stripe on the side, you can't really see it, sorry. Yeah, each stripe at the side is garter stitch, and then everything in the middle is just stockinette. And there is, of course, a little bit of difference in gauge, your row gauge between stockinette and garter. So the garter kind of draws together a bit, whereas the stockinette is more smooth and takes up a bit more space. So there was someone who commented on my last video who very aptly pointed out that I could have a bit of a scrunch effect, like the garter border could scrunch up the stockinette a little bit. And that is something that had crossed my mind. And I have to admit, I took a little bit of an Aussie, she'll be right sort of attitude, and I thought it might just be okay. And if there's a little bit of a scrunch, the blanket's probably going to be scrunched up around baby anyway, so not too fast. But I was also hopeful because I'd used this yarn before, and I know it blocks out really, really beautifully. And I had a feeling that after I block it, which I haven't done yet, any sort of difference in tension will resolve enough that it would lie flat. Like, that's just the sort of yarn it is. It just has that drape to it. But I have to say, even in just the unblocked state, there is a little bit of a difference. I think you can see it there with that pink stripe. There's a little bit of a difference in how the yarn sits in the garter stripe versus stockinette. But I don't think it's significant. I don't think it's a huge difference. So I'm thankful that my she'll be right attitude maybe will have worked out for this project. So yeah, that one is just about done, and I'm very pleased with it. After I sew in the ends and give it a quick block, it'll be ready to go and ready to go into the hospital bag for use at any moment. So because I have pretty much finished my WIPs, which is incredible, because I think I mentioned in one of my last videos, or maybe it was a while ago, I got a bit carried away with casting on new projects for a little while there, so I had just a mountain of WIPs that I found really uninspiring, and it felt a bit like homework. So the fact that I've cleared that now feels like a weight has come off my shoulders, and I can start to think about my next projects. Of course, I have no idea what I'm going to be able to do, given that I am due to give birth any moment. But I love having some projects on the go, so I'm so happy to be able to plan out some new ones. And I think after this, I'll quickly film a video on what I think I'm going to cast on. So yeah, that's probably the next video that will come out. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing my WIPs and didn't mind me having a little bit of a whinge about the MKAL. So thanks so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, it would be terrific if you would give it a thumbs up. I believe that really helps the video go places. And if you haven't subscribed, it would be terrific if you would consider subscribing so that we can chat in the future. So thanks very much, guys, and I will see you in the next video.